What's up? So I guess it's just you and AJ who are gonna show up today, so I'll give them a minute. Speaking of. What is up?
Hey, Nilo. Hey, Alyssa.
Hey. Okay.
How are you guys doing?
All right, I guess.
Same.
Right.
Been sitting down for a very long time now. So
I imagine. How many of these things have you been to today?
I don't even know. I'm supposed to do like 8 hours worth of them today. So I
Oh,
still have this
shit.
one and another one. Yeah, it's whew, whew.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been on here since 9 a.m.
Oh
with a
my,
break from 11 to noon.
oh my
So.
gosh.
Oh, it's fun.
Dude.
It's good training.
It's good training though. It's good.
Important
It's quality.
information.
Yeah, it's quality content.
For real, for real.
Quality content, definitely. That being said, we can jump into this quality content right now. So asynchronous voice thread tutoring. Fun stuff. I'm guessing everybody here, all three of us, have done an asynchronous voice thread appointment at one point or another.
Actually haven't.
You
Yeah.
haven't. Okay.
I have not either. I almost did one over the summer and then they canceled it and they came in person, or not in person, synchronously. So yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Where you guys at? So he's voice thread training workshop earlier.
I'm gonna be watching the video after.
Gotcha. All right. So I guess we can probably skip over like the technical aspects of it. Well, no, I think we can cover it just a bit, right? So let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys and kind of give the lowdown of how you're gonna log in and whatnot. So let's see here. Can I share my screen? Yes, I can. Okay, so the funny thing about it is when you're logging into VoiceThread, you're going to want to do it through a private browser. I can't explain why, but it if you go on a regular browser, it just messes it up somehow. So you're going to want to log in through private browsing or incognito, however what was it called on Chrome? It's incognito, right? I'm like the one guy who uses Firefox, like the one guy who uses Firefox, and it's called private browsing on Firefox. So then, what do you want to do? Let me find. I saved the VoiceThread link on my notes. So maybe that's a little tip, right? A little pro gamer move you might want to do. Save the username here as well, and that password is wrong. As with all our accounts, it is Riley 2021 now. And there is also a separate VoiceThread survey that you're going to want to give your students in a text box at the end of your VoiceThread appointment. I would suggest saving that link in the note as well, because you're going to provide both surveys, right? The regular WMC survey and the VoiceThread survey here. So just keep it somewhere where it's going to be convenient to reach. It's probably on the remote links for tutoring as well. I just like to make sure that we have it, securely here as well. Funny that you guys are getting a peek at my notes because, we have Nilo's skin glow up here as well, but that's besides the point.
Actually, we only still see the private browsing Firefox.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. Same here.
You probably have to share screen again, like new share.
Yeah, let's do new share. Can you guys see that now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, right. So I have my link over here, login information over here, and the VoiceThread survey in a convenient spot. So yeah, so that's the lowdown of it. So what I'm going to do now is copy.
Hey, would you mind sending that VoiceThread survey in the chat?
Absolutely.
So I could save it.
Yeah,
thank you.
Let me go ahead and do that. So let me copy this down. So here's the link to that survey. Go ahead and save it wherever you'd like. without further ado, now we're going to log in. Okay, so we have csuci.voicethread.com/all that right here. All right, and do you guys see this new screen right here? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so sign in. It's going to take you to the usual My CI window. So writing.tutors, Writerly 2021. And now we are gaining access into VoiceThread itself. You guys see all of this as well. Perfect. So when you have an appointment for VoiceThread, you're going to go ahead and access this during your allotted time. Remember that you have an hour long to finish your VoiceThread, feedback. So don't worry too much about that. And then you should be able to find your VoiceThread appointment. It's going to be labeled, right? So let's say I have one available. I scroll down. Here we go. Tutor Nilo with the 2T on the date, right? So then you're going to log in, right? Oh, I don't want that to play. I don't want to hear my voiceover recording. So here we go. Here's VoiceThread. Here's everything loaded there. Usually it is advised that the 2T maybe sends a picture of the instructions or the rubric for their assignment. Sometimes they won't though. So be prepared for that. And yeah, so now you have an hour to get down to it. Make your feedback, read through the paper. And that is the basics of it. So that's a lowdown. So when it comes into the finer details, do not worry because we are going to cover that. So let me pull up my other window right now. And luckily, I did not have to create my own content for this course or make my own lesson plan because we already have a lesson plan on Google Docs. Let me send you a link to that as well. So I just sent you guys a link to a Google Doc. And this is going to be best practices for VoiceThread tutoring. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys again so we can easily follow along. So now we know how to log in. Now we know how to access VoiceThread and make comments. So now we want to get into best practices. How can we make a VoiceThread appointment successful? So first, it's all about identifying what the student wants, as we can see here. So it's going to be like any other tutoring appointment. You want to figure out what their biggest needs are. You're going to want to figure out what they want to address the most. But how are we going to do that when it's an asynchronous appointment and they're not actually with us face to face? So that's going to be up to the SA because they're going to be sending you or any other tutor who has a VoiceThread appointment an email confirmation, or at least the copy of the email confirmation sent to the 2T. And there should be listed basically the tutor's biggest concerns, needs. Let me pull up one of those emails to show you guys an example, right? So as we can see here, let me find an email because I have tons of emails to go through. So here, for example, say that one of the SAs has scheduled you for a VoiceThread appointment. So to help you out, they should be sending or forwarding the VoiceThread feedback, asynchronous tutoring confirmation from the student, right? They'll give you a little message here as to who you're going to be tutoring, what time you're going to be tutoring them, and what they've requested. They're also going to be letting you know if they did request closed captioning. Some people have been having issues with this because, you hit the closed captioning button on VoiceThread when you're giving your feedback, and then people will be like, oh, it hasn't appeared yet. But to the best of my knowledge, when the 2T does access it and turns on closed captions themselves, I think it should pop up for them. I think that's a Shay question because he definitely has the tech knowledge there. So there's going to be that. And then you scroll down, right, and you get the original email and all of the information from the tutees request form, including what class they're in, if they have an EMT or not. In this case, it was one of my EMT students. And this is what you're going to want to pay attention to most, right? So how would you like to receive Voicethread feedback, video and voice comments? What are your top 3 biggest writing or presentation concerns that you would like feedback on? Usually they're going to list 3. This was like the 3rd Voicethread session that I did with this tutee. So at this point they were like, oh, just look over it. You already know what I'm looking for. But usually they're going to list their 3 biggest concerns, right? So it's going to be like the things we usually address. If it's organization, citations, grammar check, for example. And lastly, they're going to leave some questions here, right? So what questions do you have for the tutor? Here it was simply, how can I improve my reflection memo? So these are just going to be the things that you're going to want to pay attention to. And when you're scheduled for a Voicethread appointment, always make sure you keep this email in handy. Give it another look over before you jump into Voicethread and start giving your feedback. Take notes, even jot them down if you need to. Those being the tutee's biggest requests or concerns. And just make sure that you're paying attention to what they need the most from you. Any questions so far? Perfect. All right. So next, if we go back to our best practices, next is reading the prompt. Again, tutees are going to be instructed to leave a copy of their prompt on the Voicethread, whether it be a screenshot of the Canvas assignment, for example, or an instruction sheet they received. But this is important, right? We need to know what the professor expects from them. If they're in your EMT class, this is going to be easier, right? Because you're already familiar with the professor and whatnot, and you know their expectations. But if this is with any other professor, it is pretty crucial that you go over the prompt and the instructions, because ultimately, even though we're providing feedback as to how we see things, it's always down to the professor's requirements, right? And we don't really want a student missing out on a better grade, for example, just because we neglected the professor's requirements, especially if they happen to be very exact. So we're going to be paying attention to that, making sure the student is incorporating all aspects of it, all of that jazz. Just make sure that we're paying attention to the prompt as well as the student's concerns. So next, so you're in Voicethread, you're getting ready for your appointment and to complete your feedback. Next is reading through the whole project. So here on the instructions, it says, oh, well, some papers are too long for this, but if it's 5 or, less than 5 pages, giving it a quick read is a good idea. Let's be honest, we have an hour, during every Voicethread appointment. So I would say use the first 10 minutes or so, or even 15 minutes if you have to, just reading through that paper. It doesn't have to be too thorough, of course, you're not making an analysis out of things or anything, but you're going to want to read through the whole thing and pay attention to what's going on here. You're going to want to pick up on things like, okay, organization, maybe they're going to need to work on it. Give it a good grammar check as well, right? Because even though maybe they won't request it, maybe, and of course we want to put higher order concerns first as well. But there are a lot of classes where the professor will have a strict grammar policy, so we're going to want to check on that as well. But all that aside, take the necessary time to read through the whole paper, right? You don't want to do this, make it up as you go thing. It puts everything into context as well, because you might say, for example, oh, I notice you're not including, you're only on page 1 or 2, right? And you're already starting your feedback and you're saying, oh, I notice you're not including in-text citations in this paper. So to make sure this paper isn't plagiarizing anything, or to make sure that you're displaying your evidence, please include, in-text citations. And then you notice on the next page, oh, they are including in-text citations. They just didn't add them on that on those previous pages. So you want to go through the whole paper first to make sure that they are including everything, or maybe they're just partially including everything, and you can address that afterwards, right? And so in that example, a better comment would be, okay, notice that you're using in-text citations in some areas of this paper, but neglecting them in others. Let's be consistent with our in-text citations and add them wherever necessary. So that's just one example, right? But it is kind of a tangent. Point being that reading through the whole project as a whole is, for me, it's absolutely necessary before including comments. You just want to get a good grasp of the paper before you actually start critiquing it or anything like that. So now we move on to introducing ourselves and making the introductory comments and whatnot. So this is a good template to follow. It's going to be a little longer than the standard greeting you give in a synchronous tutoring appointment, because you're not meeting face to face, right? So you're going to have to establish a lot of things in this introductory comment. So first, you want to address the tutee's name. You want to make sure that you're actually paying attention to who they are, right? So, hi, AJ, for example, this is Nilo. I'll be your tutor for this session, et cetera, et cetera. Confirm the assignment, right? That they submitted their project for this class for Voicethread feedback. You want to make sure that they're in the right place. And address that you're going to leave your comments and respond to their concerns to the best of your abilities. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes tutees will get confused about if they can ask questions through Voicethread, right? Or if they can return to the Voicethread and keep a conversation going with their tutor. It is kind of, again, a new mode of tutoring. We're getting used to it as well. So as you can see in this example, we want to address that the tutee won't be able to respond directly. You want to tell them that if they want to continue receiving feedback on their project, or if they want to talk over some of the feedback you provided, for example, they're going to need to turn in another request form, and you're going to have another Voicethread appointment if they want continued feedback, or if they have any new questions come up. Every time I do this, I also encourage them to schedule a face-to-face appointment if they'd like. Again, it doesn't work out with everybody's schedule. That's kind of why we have this Voicethread thing in the first place. So you're going to want to encourage both modes, of course, but I always insert that comment about meeting face to face, just kind of getting more people into the WMC, for example. But again, it's always up to the tutee and what works best for them. So anyways, those are the major things you're going to want to address in your introductory comments. Okay, any questions on all of that so far? Okay, perfect. All right, little water break. So next, framing your feedback. This is also important. So basically, again, compliment sandwich. It's kind of easy to forget about like the formalities or whatever you want to call them, because we're not face to face, we're not having a conversation with a 2T here, so it's like it's kind of easy to just record your video feedback and be like, oh, fix this, this is kind of wrong, whatever. But being the tutors that we are and the professionals we are at the WMC, it's always nice to go in with the compliment sandwich again. So first, point out their strengths, point out something you like about the paragraph. So for example, here it says, I like how you tie it up with the strong example. I also like to highlight the positives of the paper as a whole sometimes when I'm going in with the compliment sandwich, like, okay, so far you've been writing very well, you have a cohesive paper so far, or I like your use of evidence in this paper. And then after your compliment, go in right with what you want to say as for feedback. What could make this paragraph stronger, for example, excuse me, is so-and-so, or perhaps may I suggest, recycling this information to this part of this paper, right? Whatever your feedback is, provide it there. Kind of, and another good thing is like explaining why the 2T's work makes sense, right? Kind of talk about how you see things from their point of view, like, oh, I see why this idea works here. I can see this making sense. But end it with a question. How can you tie up your paragraph, right? Or how can we make this come full circle, whatever it may be? I think ending with a question is a really good technique as well, because it comes off as less bossy, let's be honest, right? And less patronizing as well. We can kind of nudge our 2T towards maybe making this improvement to their paper. How can we make this improvement? Perhaps we can do this or that. Sometimes I forget to frame it as a question, I'll be honest, right? Because I just want to get straight into like providing feedback. But if you're kind of on the fence about the feedback you're presenting, right? As in like, oh, well, I can see it working this way, but my gut kind of tells me that we should probably fix it up a bit. I also like presenting my feedback as a suggestion at times, if it could work one way or another. Of course, this is my personal technique. You can employ it as well. See, there we go, suggestion. But I also like presenting my feedback as a suggestion as well, because you want your 2T to remember that they have ultimate ownership of the paper, right? And it's up to them to revise it how they best like. It's kind of our job to give guidance to that. So that's kind of what you want to follow along in providing your feedback. But again, the most important thing is the compliment sandwich. Address the strengths of your 2T's work, right? We're not here to roast their work, in its entirety, and we're not here to kind of, downgrade it. We're here to give some positive feedback, some constructive feedback as to how they can best improve their paper, right? So the compliment sandwich has always been a great technique at that. So always address their strengths before and after you provide your feedback, especially if it's critical feedback. You see, because the next section actually kind of addresses this. You should choose your words wisely, right? So what's it called? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But as you can see with the examples here in comment 1, it's just very straight to the point. And I get it, right? Sometimes we don't want to waste time, and we just want to go in without any sort of preamble. But the thing about this is that it doesn't provide context, right? So in comment 1, you might say, oh, you need a topic sentence here for this paragraph. I've caught myself getting away with that in certain face-to-face tutoring sessions as well. Because sometimes I just assume, oh, they're going to ask me the question as to why they should do that later. So face-to-face tutoring sessions, that's still a no-go, right? You need to explain why you're making that suggestion. And this is especially important in the VoiceThread session, because again, your tutor isn't there to ask you a question on the spot or ask you why they need to do something during the VoiceThread appointment. It's asynchronous. So you need to provide context as to why the tutor needs to fix this part of their paper, right? So as we see in this comment here, again, addressing strengths, give a compliment, and then follow with the feedback. Here again is presented with in the form of a question. However, I wasn't sure because you don't have an overarching topic sentence at the beginning of this paragraph. How could you summarize and introduce it in one sentence? Again, it doesn't always have to be in the form of a question. It can be in the form of a suggestion. But the big point here is that we want to provide context, right? A background as to why we need to revise a part of a paper. Make a good point as to why it would strengthen the rest of the paper as well, right? And perhaps why you're revising that part of the paper would make a paper more cohesive, for example, right? It would better connect with the other paragraphs. So something along those lines, whatever it may be in the context of the assignment that you're looking over. But in this case, you want your comments to be layered, right? You don't want just one comment, right, that provides no context or provides no guidance. We want to make sure that everything we're saying here makes it so that the tutor understands exactly what your point is, right? So we want to be thorough about that. Okay, those are the water break. Again, and this is all stuff that we've learned from face-to-face tutoring, right? So high order concerns over low order concerns, right? You don't want to be nitpicky about, grammar. Oh, you use a comma here and I don't like it, right? That's usually not how we do it, in the English language. Again, we're not here to pick it apart and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Address higher order concerns. Does it make logical sense? Is this an understandable paper? Does it answer the prompt, right? Going back to requirements and the rubric that they provide. Does this paper follow along with the professor's instructions? Transitioning between ideas effectively, is that being addressed? And integrating sources effectively. First of all, are they providing citations, right? Because this could potentially be plagiarism if they, aren't providing citations, and they could be expelled from school, and that will be on us. And we don't want any of that happening. Ain't nobody got time for that. So answer all of those in your comments, right? Address higher order concerns. Of course, we're still going along with the students' concerns and questions, what they need most from you, right? Kind of take a customer service approach to it. We want to make sure that whatever questions they had are being addressed. Again, because I've had a lot of tutors ask, oh, I don't know how this tutoring appointment works. Like, do you provide, feedback on my paper, or do I just turn it in and you return it, with, revisions or whatever? Whenever confronted with that question, I always like to make the point that our tutoring appointments are based off of what the tutor's biggest needs and concerns are. A tutoring appointment, can be different from one appointment to the other, completely based on what the tutor needs from us and what they want to address the most. So it's no different here in Voicethread tutoring, right? You want to answer their specific questions. If they do want to focus on, lower order concerns such as grammar issues, then by all means focus on it. Look it over, right? Make sure that their punctuation is, that their punctuation is all correct, that they are using, correct vocabulary and grammar. If that is especially important in the class, like I said before, there are going to be some classes with strict grammar policies, then definitely look it over. But as in all cases, higher order concerns, right? Thesis statement, cohesiveness. What's another higher order concern? Evidence, right? Make sure that that's all in there. And then we come to our signing off. When you sign off, again, you want to start with a compliment. If this is through multiple Voicethread appointments, for example, you want to perhaps provide a compliment as to how you've noticed their writing improved through multiple sessions. Maybe you want to praise the strengths of their organization, for example. But after that, I like to provide two main suggestions going forward. So your two biggest pieces of feedback, right? So for example, I'll sign off and say, so my two biggest suggestions here would be looking, one, making sure that your citations are correct, and two, fixing up your reference page, for example. If those are the two biggest concerns that you notice in the paper, by all means, include that. And then you, just like in our introduction, you want to remind them that if the tutee rather would want to talk more about your feedback or follow up on your feedback, that they'll have to schedule a future appointment. Yeah, they just won't be, again, of course, they won't be able to ask any of those questions on Voicethread. So make sure to remind them of that. And then after that, mention that there's going to be a couple of surveys that they need to fill out. I usually like to include the links to the surveys in the text box below my closing comments. So I always give them a reminder of that. And also give them the reasons why it's important they take those surveys, right? So the WMC survey, we just have all tutees take it. We use it as a performance review for our tutors. When it comes to the Voicethread appointment survey, though, it's important to point out that we use that to improve our Voicethread services, right? It's kind of like a study we do for Voicethread at the WMC to make sure that that this service is useful for the students, right? And if there's any improvements we need to make, well, the survey is the place to tell us that. And after all that, close your comments with a thank you. Thank the tutee for using Voicethread, for trusting us to provide some feedback, and mention that you'll be looking forward to working with them as well. So that basically covers all of the best practices for a Voicethread appointment. As you can see here, we have a tutoring checklist as well. Yeah, but with that, do we have any questions regarding the best practices for Voicethread appointments? Maybe anything you were confused about or that I didn't explain perhaps thoroughly enough, or are we feeling good about that part?
You explained everything super well, man.
All right, okay, good to know. That's a relief.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, so with that, we can probably go back to Voicethread, right, and kind of look over the finer details. Let me share my screen with you guys. So here we are back on Voicethread. So let's use this Voicethread appointment I did as an example. So again, we're just providing comments. I'm trying to remember like the comments I've left on this appointment to see if anything would be useful. And it's also just the fact that listening to your own recorded voice is a very weird experience. So there's that too. But as you can see here, oh yes, so I think leaving links in text box as well is something you're going to want to utilize. So I mentioned that's something you can do for the surveys. Also leave it for citation style guides as well. If you're noticing a lot of repeated errors, for example, like here, this isn't going to be a citation workshop like Sohee's earlier, but I think with one look, you can notice that their APA references aren't exactly correct, right? They have the right idea, but there's just some things about the format that we're going to have to fix. So in the voice comment above, I did address that they really do have the right idea. But I was just noticing that there were small details that they were missing, right? Such as retrieval dates, right? Or, Bureau of Labor Statistics should be the author in this first, reference up here, et cetera, et cetera. So I went ahead and left. So I addressed all of those things. I told them that I'd leave a link to the APA style guide in the text box below. And bada bing, look at that. They have the references here, right? Web page and the website reference from the APA style guide itself, right? So I highly encourage leaving links to resources in a text box. I know that a lot of the times we do stress like making sure that you're actually making the 2T correct their citations in front of you, for example, right? Especially, in live sessions, a lot of times we'll give an example as to how to format a citation or a reference, right? And then a lot of times, so he will actually tell us as well that you want to make sure that you're watching the 2T correct the citation on the spot, right? Because it's kind of like a learn by doing thing. Quite obviously in the voiceover appointment, that's not going to be possible. So the next best thing, I think, is providing those citation resources to make sure that they have all of the tools at their disposal. So there's that. But yeah, leave as many comments as you think is necessary. Address some things if you think, the format's off, or if you think, what's it called? Format, organization, for example. Those are things you're going to want to address always. So there's that. When you're finished with your voice thread, and this is also important as well, if you want your 2T to see your comments, is making sure that it is actually shareable. So when you're done, you're going to want to click on this share button over here. Click on basic, and you want to make sure that anyone is allowed to view and comments. All right. And you want to make sure that anyone can view, right? So click on who has access. And publishing options, it's not anyone can comment, it's anyone can view. So you're going to want to save all of those changes, and when you're done, click on save changes if you had to make any. And that should be that. Now, the next important thing to do after that, and excuse me as I pull up my emails again, is going to be sending an email to the SA to let them know that you have completed the voice thread. So again, while tutoring was completely online, a lot of the times we would just rely on returning to the WMC drop-in room and telling whoever was the SA, like for example, I'll walk in, Andrea's there. Hey, Andrea, I finished my Voicethread appointment. But that's not enough, because you're also going to want to send them an email, right? For example, sometimes you'll complete a Voicethread at the end of the day. Nobody's going to be in to send out that Voicethread appointment back to the 2T. So you're going to want to leave an email to make sure that if it's sent tomorrow, that the SA on duty the next day will know. But just as a rule of thumb, send an email, right? And it doesn't have to be anything, too fancy. As you can see in this example, right? Hi, Andrea. Voicethread feedback for Natalia is complete and ready to be sent. There we go. And there we go. And Andrea has the queue to send it back. And that is that. So I think those are all the most important things to just address when you are doing your Voicethread feedback. All in all, treat it like any other tutoring appointment, just with different caveats. The 2T isn't with you there live. There are some other technical, duties to go over. But when it comes to the basics, just remember, higher order concerns first, compliment sandwich, address your 2T's concerns, and make sure they're following the prompt. I think those are the most important things you're going to want to go over. Always reference, the best practices for Voicethread appointments as well. There's actually one more link that I'm going to want to share with you guys. And it's also on the remotes tutoring links as well. But I think sending it to you guys will also be helpful, so you can save it. Here, I'm going to send you guys the technical instructions for a Voicethread appointment. So this addresses like how to actually make a comment, and all of the save thingies that I kind of showed you guys as well. But I'm sure that we've all used Voicethread for like class assignments and all that. All right, so we know how to make a comment, right? I'm not gonna have to. We're all pretty familiar with that by now, especially through Zoom University and whatnot. But yeah, so you can reference this for all the technical things as well. If you say that you forget, oh, what do I save again? Don't worry, it happens to everyone. Like I found myself forgetting it multiple times as well. But here's the document you can look over. So enough of me talking, because I've done 40 minutes straight of that. Who would like to try logging into Voicethread?
I actually did it earlier, so I guess I can try it.
All right.
If
you can go ahead and share your screen.
Let me pull up a new incognito tab.
There we go.
Share it. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the do I just go to the Voicethread website, or do I have to access it through the portal?
You have to access it through that link.
Okay. Is that's just on the MyCI website, right?
Yeah, I think you can go through the MyCI website as well.
You know what? I think the way I did it earlier was I went to the Voicethread website, or that's the way Sohi told me, and I clicked on the it was like
so
sign in through your institution, and then there we go.
There we go. Yeah,
that work, please. Yay.
Perfect.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, nice.
All right. I just go to one of these.
There we go. Geez, oh, with Tutor AJ.
Yeah, this is one I have to do tonight. How do I click on it?
Oh yeah, so click on, yeah,
Okay.
there we go. Yeah, want to leave a little practice comment introducing yourself?
Sure. You can just say,
It doesn't even have to be the official comment, like you can like delete it afterwards, but
no.
yeah.
Yeah. Normally, do I have to? Oh yeah, I'd have to leave Disc or not Discord.
Oh yeah.
Zoom to
Oh yeah,
to
that's
have
right.
it work, right?
Yeah, that's right. Which is something. Okay, yeah, I should have brought that up as well. I'm never really on Zoom when I do the voiceover appointment. It's not like anybody's watching you anyways. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, I will do that. I have to do that after this actually. So
Okay,
sounds
that's
good.
perfect. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this came in clutch then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think this will be a really cool way of tutoring. Reach
Awesome.
a wide variety of newer people. So,
Yeah. Right, for sure. Alyssa, do you want to show us how to log into Voicethread?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me just copy paste this. Can you still see the incognito one?
It looks like it's
Let me
stuck.
stop and then share it again.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, can you see it now?
There we go.
Okay. It was. Oh no, I lost it. Okay. Okay, I'm signed in.
There we go.
And then, well, I don't have one with my name, but I'll just press AJ's.
Yeah, we can. Oh yeah, you have to click on the actual video. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. And then I know how to make comments already because of like classes and all that.
Right.
But yeah, I was able to do it.
Perfect. I think you guys got this then. All right, I think that about covers it. I think we can end a little early, but any other questions or anything else you guys want to address here today?
No questions.
Sound good? We feel prepared.
I think so.
I lived up to my abilities as a tutor.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
perfect.
Yeah, it was very informational. Good tips, especially since I haven't done one.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Same. But now I know how. So thank you, Nilo.
Nice, nice. All right, I think that about wraps it up. Just remember to reference those pages I sent you guys earlier. They should be on the remote tutoring links on the Tumblr as well if you ever need them or if you ever happen to lose them. But yeah, keep those in handy. If you guys need any more tips, I'm always there. Just holler at me with a question, and that should be good.
Awesome.
All right, y'all.
All right.
Bye.
All right, see ya.
Everyone.